Okay, in this quick tutorial, I'm going to introduce you to Shapr3D in about 10 minutes. Now, this obviously won't be a deep dive within this time limit here, but I have designed this tutorial in a way that will allow you to see if Shapr3D is the right tool for your 3D modeling or hardware design needs. So let's jump in. Okay, so first let's open up Shapr3D and then click on this button here to create a new project. Now, once inside our project, let's just familiarize ourselves with this workspace here. So to begin, click on this drop down here where it's showing our untitled project, and let's just give our project a more descriptive name. Now let's click on this measurement icon here and set the measurement details. So for example, we can set our project to use millimeters, centimeters, feet, and so on. Now for my project, I'm just going to select millimeters here. Now a couple of other quick settings to mention to you. Under File and then Settings, you can change your navigation presets here. Also, in your settings page, you can also toggle between light and dark mode, but just keep in mind that if you do decide to change this, it will require that you close down and then restart Shapr3D. Okay, so now let's jump back into our main canvas area here so we can start drawing our first shape. Now let's orient ourselves to the front view by clicking on Front on this cube in the upper right corner here. Now, if you're not currently centered on your canvas, you can hold down the Control or Command if you're on a Mac, and then right click and move yourself around on your canvas. Now, if you right click and move without holding down Command or Control, you'll reposition your orientation in your three-dimensional space here. So again, let's click on front right here, and then we will be positioned in our front view. So from here, hover over this icon and then click on Sketch. Now let's select rectangle by clicking on rectangle here, or we can simply click on the R button on our keyboards. Okay, so let's begin by sketching out our rectangle here. And we do this by left clicking anywhere on our canvas. I'm going to click here on my origin, and then I'm just going to drag my rectangle to my desired size. Now notice as we scale or shrink our rectangle, we'll see the exact size dimensions show up right here. So left clicking again anywhere outside of the rectangle will allow you to place your rectangle on the canvas. And then once the rectangle is placed, we can change its size by clicking into the height or width here and then manually entering our desired measurements. All you need to do is simply enter your measurement and then hit the enter button. Now let's exit our sketch once we're finished by clicking on this exit sketch button here. Notice here that our sketch is now showing up in our items section over to the left here, as well as our history section over to the right here. So now that we're out of sketch mode, let's just click anywhere outside of our rectangle, and then we can left click and hold to move or change our point of view. Now, initially, after sketching a rectangle, as long as the face has been selected, you'll be given this option to extrude your rectangle. Again, if you're not seeing this extrude option right now, all you need to do is simply click on your rectangle's face and then use this arrow button to extrude your shape. Again, as you extrude, you'll see the dimensions of your extrusion show up here. Okay, so all we've done so far is created this 3D rectangle. And obviously this is just a simple beginner's tutorial, so we can create this design without using any reference. However, when you have a bigger vision in mind for a product that you're trying to create, you might want to start with a strong reference line drawing for working in 2D space, or with a strong 3D reference to help you block out more complex 3D geometry. So for example, I could simply import a 2D image here and then place it on my canvas for tracing, or I could even import an entire 3D object, which I could then use for 3D tracing or for blocking on my canvas here. Now, these reference 2D images and 3D models were created in Lightloop. Now, Lightloop is a product ideation tool that allows you to pre-design any product that you can dream up and then import that design into whatever CAD system you're using to use this 2D or 3D reference tools, where essentially you can trace around or use for blocking. So if you're interested in using Lightloop to quickly create 3D models of ideas that you have living in your head that you want to make real, a link to Lightloop can be found below. But let's not get ahead of ourselves right now. Let's just continue working with this really simple geometry that we have on our canvas right here. Okay, so now that we have our shape created, let's look at our display mode by clicking on this icon here. Now, notice by default that our shape is set to shaded, but we could set this to wireframe to get this effect here. Or we could set this to visualized to see how our shape will look as a finished shape. Now notice that when we are set to shaded here, that we can either show or hide the edges as well as show or hide the hidden edges by toggling these buttons on or off here. So while we're looking at displays, let me quickly show you how to toggle your grid on and off by clicking on this world icon here. Now from here, let's click on this appearance tab. And now notice that you can turn your grid and your world access. So for example, your X, Y, and Z access on and off as well. So let's keep everything set to on now, and then we'll just click out. Okay, so now notice that we have both our sketch as well as our body under items in the left sidebar. Now this is a very simple construction so far, but once your builds get more complex, you can always use this search bar to search for specific types of items. So for example, we could show only sketches or show only bodies, only show planes, and so on. Also notice that if I click on my sketch in my sidebar, it becomes highlighted over on the main canvas. And the same obviously is true if I was to click on body. Also, you can edit your item names by simply right-clicking on the name and then clicking on rename here. This is very helpful once your designs start to get much more complex. And there's also this folder system to handle a lot of the complexity of building bigger projects as well. So for example, as long as no items are selected in our sidebar, we could click on this folder icon here and then create and name a folder and then place any items we want within that folder by simply dragging the items into it. Again, very valuable once your builds get more complex. Also, you can always change the size of the shape by simply drilling into the original sketch over in the sidebar here by simply clicking on it. And now this should bring up the dimensions of the original sketch. And then from here, you can simply edit the size of the sketch, and the changes will impact the size of the entire extruded object. Alternatively, there's another way to do this. So let's click on the top face of our rectangle here. Now notice that when we do that, this blue arrow becomes visible again. And so let's grab that and then push our height down. Now notice that does not change the height of our original sketch. Now we could always change the height of that sketch later on, or we simply might want to use this extra space to extrude another shape. So what we'll do is let's just do that now. Notice now when I do extrude this extra shape that we now have two bodies, and we can select each of these individual bodies over in our sidebar here. Now selecting either body will highlight it over in the main canvas, and you can also turn on or off the visibility of an item by simply clicking on this icon here. Okay, so now let's imagine that we want to drill a hole through the top of this part of our object here. So let's select the top from the upper right corner here, and then we'll use Control or Command to reposition ourselves in the middle of the canvas here. Now let's select the top face here, and then what we'll do is we'll select Sketch. Now if you don't see a center point on the face here, simply exit sketching and click on this magnet icon here. Just ensure that all of your snapping options are turned on. Now, once you do that, and then you click on the face again and then click on sketch, you'll now see some snap points on this face, including a center snap point. Okay, so let's draw a circle on this point by clicking on circle or by simply pressing C. Now, with our circle drawn, notice that it will also show up as a sketch over in the left sidebar here. Okay, so let's exit sketching now and look at what we have. Okay, so far so good. But again, imagine that we want to punch a hole through this shape. To do that, we can extrude our shape by simply clicking on the face of the circle and then extruding the circle down. There are many ways to do this. This is just the easiest way that I can think of for this tutorial. So as you can see here, as we do this, we can push the circle all the way through, cutting a hole through both of the bodies that we've created previously. Okay, so another thing you'll likely find yourself doing all of the time within Shapr3D is cutting shapes into other shapes, either adding shapes together or subtracting shapes from one another. So let me show you how this works. So let's click on our top view here, and now let's sketch a new small circle just off to the right here. Now, once you're done, exit sketching and then extrude that shape upwards so that it's taller than your first shape. Now, once it's created, click on the body or find the body in the sidebar and then click on it. Now, this should immediately bring up the move tool, which will allow you to move the shape around your canvas. Now, if you don't see the move tool, you can always search for it or any other operation by clicking on this search icon here and then searching for what you're looking for. So in our case, we're looking for move, so I'll search for that now. And then what we'll do after selecting that, we'll see these arrows here. So I can just place this cylinder partially inside our first object. Now let's go over to our search option here again, and we'll search for subtract. Now notice that Shapr3D gives you instructions on what to do next. But let me walk you through this because it's actually quite easy to do. So to apply a Boolean operator to a shape, simply select the first shape. So I'll select my cylinder here, and notice that my cylinder has a plus icon here. And that's not what I want here. I want to subtract, not add. So I'll click this icon until a subtraction sign shows up here. Now next I can click on this body shape here until I see a plus icon show up, and I'll do the same for my last body down here. So now we should have two plus icons and a subtraction icon. Now once you're ready, you can simply click on this arrow key here to approve the changes. And that's it, we're all done. Now if you ever make a mistake, you can always use Control or Command Z on your keyboard to reverse your last action, or you can always just go up here and undo the last thing that you've done here. Okay, so now I want to show you how to use the chamfer and fillet tools. Now, as long as we're not in sketch mode, we can select an edge of any shape like this edge here. And now automatically a blue arrow will pop up and ask us if we want to use the fillet or chamfer tools. But we don't need to select that option here because we can simply push in or out to apply each of the effects. You also have this control here, which is incredibly valuable, which allows you to control essentially the kind of aggressiveness or smoothness of the curved effect. Now, quickly before wrapping up, I want to show you a couple of other very common operations within Shapr3D. So firstly, it's common to need to hollow out an object. So for that, we use the shell command. So let's click on this face here, and then let's click on shell. Again, if you can't find shell, just search for it by using the search icon here. Now notice that we can control the thickness of these walls now by pulling in or out these arrows here. And like with all sizing things within Shapr3D, we can also manually set the wall width here. Now, once done, you'll notice that we can see the interior of the box, including a little artifact here from our subtraction operation. So let's get rid of that cylinder now by simply clicking on the cylinder and then clicking on delete on our keyboard. Okay, so there you have it. We now have a fully hollowed out shape. And lastly, just before signing off, I want to show you how to offset an edge. Again, it's a really common operation. So let's grab another face on our object here, and then we'll search for offset edge, or we can just click on O on our keyboard. Again, we'll use this arrow to offset the edges, and once done, we'll click on this icon here. Now we can select this new face and extrude it to our liking. Okay, so there's obviously a lot more that you can do with Shapr3D. I've barely scratched the surface in this introductory tutorial, and I will cover more advanced product design workflows in upcoming tutorials. Also remember, if you're looking for help creating beautiful product images in 3D models, then head over to Lightloop to learn more about the various tools we have which allow you to dramatically speed up your product design workflows. So that's all I have for you. Thanks for stopping by.